This is Chloe. So today was a very eventful day. I just got my first round of laser hair removal done. It hurt a lot. I know people say that it's just kind of warm and then it feels like a rubber band hit you. For me it felt more like bee stings, so that wasn't very pleasant. You probably see my little dog running around. Violet! Papas! That's one of my dogs, and then I have my other big dog here, Parker. So in my last video I said that I was going to do a coming out video. So what better place to do it than at my mom's house? So I just came out recently, probably about, I want to say a month ago, to my parents, my grandparents, one of my brothers. My youngest brother doesn't know yet, but he'll know within the next couple weeks. And some of my friends. I'm not completely out to everyone yet, but that will happen in the next month or two. And I'm not too worried about it. I'm very selective as far as friends and everything, and if I come out and people don't like it or they don't agree with it, then they don't need to be my friends. That's just how I feel. So a little bit how I came out as transgender. I obviously have been seeing a psychologist for a long time. Just talking about, oh, I look very white. Just talking about how, I feel and how I knew and all of the things that I just blanked. All of the things that, I'd gone through growing up, all my feelings then. And we started talking about coming out to my parents. And my middle brother has known probably now for 3 years. But, I was still on and off about it because I was dating and I was in a relationship. And, you try to suppress that, and especially when you're dating someone who would not approve. But I finally decided to tell my parents. And I know everyone has different relationships with their parents, and I'm very fortunate to have the parents that I have because they're very accepting. But the way I came out was through an email. And that's not typically my style. I'm a very social, very talkative, I like to talk things out kind of person. So ideally, I would have liked to sit both of my parents down and talk to them about it. But I also wasn't able to see both of my parents at the same time that often because my dad is in Texas and my mom is up here in Minnesota. So I sent them an email at the same time. A very, very long email, kind of just explaining who I was, saying that I was transgender and that, I felt like this all of my life, and just some things. Maybe I'll read the email, but it's kind of personal. And then, I kind of emailed my mom back and forth about different questions she had as far as like surgeries and hormones and the process. And I think mostly parents aren't, and this is just from my experience, are going to accept it, but they're going to be worried. They're going to be worried for your safety because, trans people are probably the biggest group of people in the United States that are discriminated against and have acts of violence put towards them in the U.S. So that's something parents worry about because they don't want their children to be harmed. Violet, stop it. Violet! Sorry. And I think that was my mom's main concern, is she doesn't want anyone to hurt me. She doesn't want, me to be made fun of or discriminated against, and that's something that I'm going to have to deal with, I know. And I'm ready for it. I'm ready to transition and be myself. So that's something I reiterated to her. Another thing, I think, coming from a male to female perspective, your dads, they take it, I think, maybe a little bit harder than your moms do. At least in my case, because, you know, they can relate to being born male, having male parts, and they kind of can relate to, I mean, they can't relate because they're not going to be getting any of the procedures done, but SRS, breast augmentation, and all of that stuff, they can try to imagine what that's going to be like because they, you know, have the same or similar parts to you before you go through your GRS. Something that my dad said that, you know, just shows that he needs to educate himself a little bit more, and maybe I need to help him learn about that. Is I just don't understand why you would want to cut your penis off. And it kind of caught me off guard a little bit because, I mean, just for him to be thinking about that is odd. But at the same time, you know, it's not, you're not going to be cutting your penis off. It's a very, very complex surgery that has many steps, and, you know, it's much more than cutting your penis off. So he's just, I think he's finding a way to express his worry in a different way. So as far as, you know, how to tell your parents, my policy is honesty is the best, especially because in this point in my life I'm transitioning in many aspects, whether that be my gender, my career, my schooling, my family, where I'm going to be living. I need a source of continuity in my life, and I think bringing my gender identity to match my physical identity is going to be that source of continuity, even though it'll take a while. And that's something you can tell your parents, you know. I think talking about emotion and talking about how you feel is really important, but also take into consideration how they're going to feel. You can't just run into a room where your parents are, or call your parents and say, hey, next time you see me, I'm going to be a girl. Or next time you see me, I'm going to be a boy. That's something that I really think that you need to take into consideration, because it'll help your transition and their help go smoother if you take their feelings into consideration. The reason I did an email was, one, I wanted my parents to see it at the same time, but also I wanted to give my parents some space so they could have time to think about how they felt about this, maybe educate themselves a little bit more on the issue before they decided to talk to me. Just really give them time to gather their thoughts about this whole process and my transition. And I think that worked, because in my email I talked about, you know, how I'd been feeling like this most of my life, but I mean also personal details, but also at the very end of it I gave them some links to some trans women who, you know, have been successful, and so they are more versed in transition than I am, because, you know, they're post-op, but they're also well versed socially as a trans woman and have been through experiences. So Janet Mock, Laverne Cox, Gina Rosero, so they YouTube them, Google them, and they, you know, that helped, I think, for them to see that trans women can be successful too, because that's a big thing. Is in my life I've always been very driven and very successful, and they just don't want that to affect, you know, my life outcome. So addressing your parents' questions is really important, but giving them time to think, giving them space, not necessarily pushing it towards, you know, or pushing it down their throat too fast, because I think it really does take time for it to sit in and settle. You know, the more and more time passes from when I came out to my parents, the more and more they're learning by doing research on their own, or by talking with me, or by talking with their friends, or, you know, reading books. I mean, Redefining Realness has really helped me, by Janet Mock, has really helped me come out and embrace my inner woman, and I think that, you know, my mom is going to be reading that soon, and I think that'll help her too. But, you know, just my story is that I gave my parents my letter through email. You can sit down and talk with parents if you feel more comfortable that way. Physical letters work too, but don't hold back in those letters. Tell them how you feel inside, because no one can argue with how you feel. They are not in your body. They don't know how you perceive things, how you handle the emotions that are going on, how you look at yourself in the mirror every day. And I think that's something that you need to state and have them think about, whether that be an email, letter, in person, whatever you choose to do. And also, you know, having conversations openly is very important with your parents. And I try to do that often. I think a couple weeks ago, my dad was talking to me about it, and he just kind of was confused still, and he was trying to process all of this information himself, and he said the thing about cutting it off, and but I told him, you know, how uncomfortable I felt when I looked in the mirror every day, and how I didn't feel like myself. And I kind of used the the example of, imagine if one day you woke up and you were in mom's body, and you had to live like that for the rest of your life, not feeling the same way you do inside, looking like a completely different person from what you know you are. Just look in the mirror now and see yourself, and imagine being stuck in something else, something foreign to you, something that you can't identify with. And I think that's important to think about if you're not trans. If you're a parent watching this or a friend watching this, think about how this person has been living their life. For someone to come out takes a lot of courage. And you should be honored and blessed if someone comes out to you, because they are divulging such personal information, such personal feelings, emotions, experiences that they've gone through in their life, and they're telling you. That makes you a special person. And don't ruin that. Be understanding. Listen. Someone who's coming out to you, you need to be an ear, because they have a lot to say. They have something to get off of their chest. So, all in all, I just want to say that if you're trans and you're planning to come out, be open, be honest, be understanding if your parents or whoever you're coming out to isn't understanding. Give space. Let them think. But in the end, it's about you being yourself and being comfortable in the body that you want and you need. So, I hope you guys, you know, learn a little something from this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box down below. I did mention at the beginning of this video that I got some laser hair removal done on my face and on my neck. My next video I'll talk about that a little bit more, maybe more in depth, and maybe do a little bit of a review on that. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, likes, dislikes, just leave them in the comment box and subscribe. Thanks, guys.